Penguins are in a bit of a funk. They've lost 3 in a row for the first time in 2 months. We're going to have a full game recap for the game on Sunday against the Kings coming up on today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Plus, we're going to look ahead to tomorrow's matchup against the Washington Capitals, the Penguins' last game before the All-Star break, where they will have a full week off. That will be coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to this Monday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast and making this your first listen of the day. So the Penguins, now since we last talked, they lost 2 in a row. Now they've lost 3 in a row. This is their first 3-game losing streak in the last 2 months. This one, you start things off. I don't think the Penguins played particularly bad. They had 2 pretty good periods, but it was the second period that, the game really got away from them. I think to start everything off, obviously Trevor Moore cherry-picked for 2 goals. That is one thing. I don't care who it is on any team. I don't care if it's the person's on the Penguins. I hate cherry-picking in hockey. I think it's a cheap way to score goals. He was at the blue line twice for 2 of his goals. The first one comes in. Nice backhand shot, I will say. Tristan Jarry probably should have played that better. He came in. Jarry was just too deep in his net. I think that's one thing that I've talked about repeatedly on this podcast, right? When he's too deep in his net, he's playing scared. And he looked scared on that one, and Moore was able to rifle one heck of a backhand top cheese. If he's out a little bit more, Jarry makes that save. And then the Penguins are not, it's not a 2-1 game after that. But the Penguins didn't guard the stretch pass well enough. And then in the third period, when they come back and tie the game, there's less than 7 minutes left. It looks like you're going to get a point. Guess who's cherry picking at the blue line, a.k.a. Danny Briere part 2, except Trevor Moore at least was onside for this one. He was not offsides. And he's just sitting there, goes top cheese again on Tristan Jarry. I would have liked him to make a save there, but I'm not really going to kill him at the end of the day just because he's been one of the best goaltenders in hockey this year. It's a cheap way to score goals in the NHL. That said, also, Penguins got to play those better. If you don't want a player like that to cherry pick for 2 goals, and he only had 4 goals coming to this game, play those stretch passes better. Sid, I think, was the culprit for that one because he made an ill-advised pinch. When you have just come back to tie a game, and you're playing well in the third period, you're dominating play, you're territorially, it's all in your favor. You can't give up a breakaway with 6 minutes left in the game. You're asking for failure, and you're playing with fire, and that's exactly what happened. They failed. Tristan Jarry couldn't make the save. He's bailed out this team's butts almost every game at some point this season, but for this one, he wasn't able to do it. And you know what? Sometimes that happens, and at the end of the day, what are you going to do? They've lost 3 in a row. It's not the end of the world. They're still in third place in the Metro. They're 4 points up on Washington, 1 point behind the Rangers. I believe they still have a game in hand on them right now. Carolina is back to being 3 points ahead. It's just you played. Like I just said, you played with fire multiple times. You lost with it. At the end of the day, you got to learn from it. And for this game overall, the Kings had the edge in shot attempts and scoring chances for the Kings. 54% of this shot attempts, 59% of the scoring chances for 8-7 lead in high danger, and then 58% of the expected goals as well. So the better team did win this game, and the Kings gave the Penguins a lot of trouble this year. The first matchup, I kind of scooted aside, California road trip, but this one, I don't really think there was, too many excuses. I know the Penguins have been pretty fatigued, and they do look gassed, but the Kings also just played the night before against Philadelphia. And remember, the Flyers broke their 13-game losing streak against that team, and you're telling me they're going to come in there and go into your building and go up 3-1 going into the third, and you're the one that looks flat for about the first 20 to 25 minutes? I don't like that. That's just I'm not going to say it's embarrassing or horrendous or anything like that, but it's not a good look when a team that played not even 20 hours before is going in there and just, making your just embarrassing you on your home rink for a little bit of it. So whatever, I guess. But, to the good parts at least, another big takeaway that I have, Brian Rust, 2 more goals. He is playing lights out hockey right now, averaging well over a point per game. If the Penguins are not going to pay him, someone will, and rightfully so. He is going to probably get 5 times 6, 5 times maybe 6.5 on next contract. It's probably going to turn into the next Zach Hyman kind of deal, I would say. And good on him. He's having a hell of a year. Maybe one of those goals he got a little bit lucky. I know one of them, the tying one went off one of the Kings players' skates and in the net. The other one was just a really nice shot, top cheese. But he got them back in the game and gave them a chance until the Kings had that breakaway. He was really, really good in this matchup. So, I can't say enough about how great he has been this year. Sidney Crosby, he scored the other goal. He's been really finding his game lately, and it's just, he's continuing to play like a top 5 player in hockey. I loved the pass that we saw from Evgeny Malkin on the power play, which, speaking of that is heated up to, I believe they have a goal now in 8 out of their last 10 games. That's basically been their offense throughout these last 3 to 4 games. The Penguins have not been scoring at all at 5v5. Their lines 2 through 4 honestly have gone really quiet. I should say, during this 3-game losing streak. It's not it's not good, to say the least. I'm going to have my thoughts on that coming up later on in the show, and just, what the team should do potentially to shake up the lines and, get some of these players that, performed well earlier this season, see if they can, perform better. But Gino had that ridiculous saucer pass, comes into the blue line, fires it past, and then Sid with a hell of a release past Cal Peterson. I mean, he had no chance on that one. They was able to tie the game for a short amount of time. And, those are the kind of little plays that I think people need to, just cherish them, because there's going to be a day pretty soon here probably that, the Penguins, they're not going to have players that can do that, especially of Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby's caliber. And I know they make it so easy. I totally get that. But I mean, it's still quite a pass and quite a shot to pull off. I mean, not a lot of players can do that. So just a great play. And, Evgeny Malkin continues his strong play as well. I know defensively it's not all the way there sometimes, but I thought he was pretty good overall. The Penguins did survive an injury scare. Thank God Brian Dumoulin did not fracture his ankle again. Remember, he did that a few years ago when he was out for a large majority of the season. He came back for the playoffs, just did not look like the same player. I thought that was history repeating itself for this one. Thankfully, he was able to come back in the second period. There's no injury as of right now, knock on wood. So looks like he's a full go for the game against Washington, I should say, on Tuesday. I already talked about Tristan Jarry a bit earlier. He had an off day. It happens. This was probably one of his worst starts of the season. The first goal, I saw some people kind of harping on him a little bit. I disagree with that, just because if you saw the goal there, he fired. I think it was Iafallo from the far left boards, fires the puck in, and it's deflected off of Sid's stick past Jarry. I do think maybe Tristan could have been out of the net a little bit more. I think he was playing a little bit deep in there as well. But at the end of the day, I'm not really going to crap on a goalie who just, he's being hit by friendly fire. I mean, I don't think that's his fault. I know what Sid was trying to do. He got a piece of the shot. It just wasn't enough. Usually those go, out of play and something like that. Now, the second goal, as I said, that probably he wants back, was playing way too deep in his net there. He needs to come out and challenge Trevor Moore a little bit. The fourth one, I already said as well, it would be nice if he would have come up with that save. But at the end of the day, as I've already said numerous times in this episode, through the first 9 minutes, he's bailed this team out so many times this year that, he's earned the right to sometimes have a bad start. I mean, that's what happens. You're not going to be perfect every single start. Even Andrei Vasilevsky is going to get lit up for 4 to 5 goals every once in a while. That's what happened with Tristan in this one. He's fine. Everything will be fine going into the next game. Injury-wise, Danton Heinen, he is day-to-day right now with a lower body injury. We're unsure if he's going to play against Washington, so that's still TBD on that. But I will say I was definitely a bit frustrated just watching the game because, for 2 of the periods the Penguins were playing pretty well. It was just, overall, the mistakes they were making were being hit in that they were being put in the back of their net. And sometimes that hasn't been the case this season. They've been bailed out by the goaltender. But, for once as well, they lost the goaltending battle and then they weren't finishing their chances themselves. So that's what really happened in this one. That said, I think the Kings are a pretty solid team. I've said it numerous times that they were going to be a playoff team this year. And, Kopitar and Deneau down the middle is a really scary 1-2 punch. They were giving Sid and Gino fits in both games this year. So I think they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. I think they can definitely beat Anaheim. They can beat whoever else in the Pacific except Vegas. I would say I think they can give them a series, but I don't know if they're going to beat them. But and the funny thing is the Penguins didn't even see Jonathan Quick in this one, and it didn't even matter. But still have a lot more to get to when it comes to this game. We're going to get into some more struggles with Evan Rodrigues, talk about what I would do with the lineup and some sort of other few stuff, and then of course we're going to preview the game against Washington on Tuesday. But before we do that, it is a new year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar as well. You want to eat healthy, but it just gets so boring. By like week 3, you might be thinking this is just not worth it. Where's the chocolate? But that's the thing. Built Bars are covered in 100% chocolate. Most of them contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. If you compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs, here's an idea for the new year. Go to all of your secret treat stashes at home, in the pantry, at the office, in the car, wherever. Throw out all the sugary or calorie-filled treats and replace them with Built Bars. So when you're craving a snack or treat, you can reach for something that's healthy and tastes incredible. And there's so many flavors to choose from as well: coconut, almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, salty caramel, mint brownie, and a lot more. Remember, go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, welcome back to this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show Twitter at LO_Penguins. So there's been a lot of discourse lately about Evan Rodrigues. And, I see all this on social media and message boards and all that. Well, where's Erod gone? This isn't the player that we all saw, about 10 games ago or some stuff like that. And while I understand that, he was never going to keep up a point per game production. I mean, he has 32 points in 45 games this year. That's pretty good. I know he has not scored in the last 8 to 10 games, though, he's been having some playmaking bit by bit. It just, he's been shooting it still just as much. Was the funny thing. The puck is just not going in the back of the net. So, people are wondering, what the Penguins should do with him and all this other stuff. In my opinion, I think he needs to stay in the top 6 no matter what. With how Kasperi Kapanen is playing right now, for God's sake, the guy was on the 4th line on Sunday. That goes to show how much Mike Sullivan is upset with him. And I'm going to get to him, in a few minutes. But, with how he's playing, put Rodrigues with Malkin and, whoever else you want on the left wing and see how they mesh, for a longer period of time. Rodrigues, he's been a good shooter this year. Every time he gets the puck in the offensive zone, he shoots it to the net. That's the reason why he has 15 goals, which is a career high for him so far this season. But, they gotta keep feeding him the puck more, and they gotta keep putting him in positions to succeed. The Penguins have not been doing that a lot lately because, sometimes he's been in the bottom 6. That hasn't been working for him. And I think a change for what line he's on will really help him. I also think he could play a little bit more on the power play if needed. I know the top power play has been really good lately. Even I was a little bit skeptical, when Brian Russ came back, because I wasn't sure how the top power play was going to be. It's been just out of this world. Obviously, it's been one of the best units in hockey ever since him and Malkin come back. They've just been scoring at will with that unit. But that's what I want to see with Rodrigues. I want to see him get more minutes, put him in a position to succeed and have him do his thing. I understand that, it's kind of been a tale of 2 seasons with him. He had that really hot start where it was like, wow, holy crap, he's been one of the best players in the NHL. But now, lately for the last couple of weeks, it's like, okay, was that just a mirage or, just what's going on here? So that's what I think the Penguins need to do with Rodrigues. And if they do, hopefully they'll reap the rewards with that. Now for Kasperi Kapanen, again, he had another dreadful game against the Kings. He was on the fourth line to start. Didn't really come up to Evgeny Malkin's wing that much. And, rightfully so. He's just been really bad this year. His shooting percentage has cratered. Every time he gets the puck, he treats it like it's a grenade. I've lost count of how many times this player, he has a burst of speed going into the offensive zone, right? Stops. Randomly decides to stop, pulls up, and then either dumps the puck in or tries to force a pass, and then it's going back the other way. I'm like, buddy, you are one of the fastest skaters on the team. Use it to your advantage and burn past that defenseman that it looks like you are going past. I'm struggling right now because I don't understand, just what's been going on with that. And I don't know if he doesn't have confidence. That could be it. But I mean, this has just not been the same player. What I would do with him, I mean, I would keep him in the bottom six until he starts producing a little bit more. And I know some people could say to me, well, Hunter, they should put him back on a Malkin's line because, he can reignite his old chemistry with him from last year. Yeah, they were trying that, but it wasn't getting anywhere. Now, could he be used for trade bait? I mean, I think could see that. I mean, Ron Hextall really has no loyalty to him. That's the thing. He didn't trade for him. That was Jim Rutherford. So who knows on that front? I know Kapanen is a pretty popular player in the locker room, so it could sting in that regard. But that said, I definitely could see Ron doing that and bringing in another forward for this team because, again, he has no loyalty to him. And, I definitely think he probably sides with Mike Sullivan in that, he's just been a really big, colossal disappointment this year. So, I'm fine with him staying in the bottom six. If he's not going to produce, you put him down there, or, if you want to scratch him, but I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to put, Rodrigues or Horn or Brian Boyle in the lineup if this team ever does get fully healthy for Kasperi Kapanen. That's just my opinion, though. But that's what I would do with him at least. I think he needs to earn his ice time because I mean it's just been a total cluster. I think this year for him. It was also unfortunate that Danton Heinen got hurt when he did. I thought he was starting to play better, though he's also missed quite a bit of half empty nets this year. He's cooled off a bit too, as he has 9 goals right now. Started off the season really good, which was great. But I don't think he scored in the last 10 or 11 or 12 games either. But hopefully whatever he's doing with right now is not too serious. And of course, Wesley Euler is going to text me as I'm recording this because he's mad that the West Virginia Tech game is on the Thursday night. Well, Wes, you can wait to get my response. Anyways, go back to the Penguins talk. I'm definitely gonna have to have Wes on. Okay, well, Wes, buddy, we're gonna have to not do that. Oh my gosh, I hate Wes for this, but you know what? We're gonna have to. Okay, you know what? We're gonna go right through it because I hate recording on my Mac. This is why I'm going to be getting a PC why I'm going to be getting a webcam for my PC, so I can start recording on there, and then I don't have to deal with Wes just blowing up my phone. And I also should have my text muted because that's just ridiculous. Anyways, this is only going to be for the video, so I apologize for this for you all. I definitely. Let's see here. Okay, do not disturb. Okay. Anyways, back to what I was saying. Just defensively, even I think it's John Marino has definitely been really struggling this year. I've lost count of times while he's just he's stunk in front of his own net. I didn't really like his game against Los Angeles either. I thought Pettersson, he was fine. He's been having a good year. But the team definitely has to figure out what's going on with Marino, and they got to get him some help in the net front. At least. But that'll do it for this second segment of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Coming up in the third segment, we're going to do a full game preview for the matchup against Washington on Tuesday. All right, so we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. All the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So, as I just said, the Penguins, they will get the Capitals on Tuesday. This will be their third of 4 matchups this year. Remember, these two teams have played twice in Washington already. The Capitals whooped their butts. What was that? November 14th, 6-1. And then about a few weeks later, the Penguins went to Washington and whooped their butts 4-2. For Washington, there will be no TJ Oshie. So Pierre Laviolette said on Monday morning that he is a game time decision. No, actually, no, excuse me. He is week to week with a lower body injury, it looks like. That's a big loss just because, he's always been, I think, a Penguin killer over the years. It's not like Jordan Eberle level, but it's still something where it's like, holy crap, you always got to watch out for him. And, they have that patent play on the power play, even though it struggled this year, where, Backstrom loves to feed Oshie in the slot area. And, he would always go high glove over Memory or whoever was in the Penguins net. That's just been going on ever since Oshie was traded to Washington. So that's still a big loss for their lines, though. Ovechkin with Kuznetsov and Wilson. What Ovechkin has done this year is nothing short of spectacular. 29 goals, 58 points in 45 games. He is probably the leading contender right now for the Hart Trophy, and rightfully so. You're not going to hear me say a bad word about Alex Ovechkin unless he does something stupid on the ice. He's one of the greatest players to ever play this game. He's a top 5 goal scorer. That's all that matters at the end of the day. I hope that Caps fans give the same courtesy and respect to Sidney Crosby, but with how long I lived in the DC area, that's for most of them, that's probably never going to happen. But on this podcast, I'll always respect Ovi, just a great player, and I'm blessed that we always have gotten to see him and Sid go at it for so many years. They're the two best players of this generation. That said, also great to see Nick Backstrom back. I also think he is ridiculously underrated, probably one of the best passers in the game and has been ever since he came into the league. He'll be playing with Connor Sherry and Daniel Sprong. On their third line, they'll have Lars Eller with McMichael, Carl Hagelin, Nick Dowd, and Garnet Hathaway on their fourth line. That is probably one of the worst fourth lines in hockey. Carl Hagelin is just a shell of his former self. I feel bad that he is still on this team because Caps fans every night, from what I see on Twitter, they are just going berserk every time he's iced. So I kind of feel bad at this point. John Carlson, obviously, always have to watch out for him. He mans the top pairing, great offensive defenseman, Dmitry Orlov with Justin Schultz on the second pairing, and then Trevor Van Riemsdyk on the third pairing, and then they'll start one of Samsonov or Vitek Vanacek. So there's also an interesting story with the Capitals that might go on here. Elliot Friedman last week linked Marc-Andre Fleury to them, and then also said today on his 32 Thoughts podcast that it sounds like the Capitals are trying to make this work where they're going to go get Marc-Andre Fleury. But the kicker is that Marc-Andre Fleury, because he was a Penguin for so long, he doesn't want to go play for Washington just because he still has basically that hatred for them. So that's just that. I mean, it's basically like, I don't know, Ben Roethlisberger of the Steelers being, that they're so bad that the Ravens are looking to trade for him. And then, he's just saying, no, I'm not going to go there and play, for a rival that I've hated for basically my entire career. That's the same thing with Fleury. And that's, I think, a main reason why it seems unlikely that he would allow a trade to Washington. That said, Elliott did confirm that Washington is looking into it. They're trying to get Fleury, but it looks like as of right now, Fleury may not approve a trade there. So we'll always love you, MAF. But if you do approve a trade there, then you'll be on a lot of people's craps list. Well, maybe not, because it would kind of be funny if the Penguins knocked him out of the Stanley Cup playoffs, wouldn't it? I would live to see the reactions from all the Fleury fans in this fan base. That's for sure. Underlying numbers wise for Washington, though, if I can scroll down here, Money Puck, 51% of the expected goals this year, almost 57% of the actual goals. They have a plus 25 goal differential, 51.8% of the shot attempts as well. They have pretty good underlying numbers. It's their biggest thing is that, one, they've been in a funk lately, it looks like, and two, their power play has been terrible. Going into one of their games this past weekend, their power play was 5 for their last 58. And think about that. You have the greatest goal scorer of all time in his office, John Carlson, who's a pretty good power play quarterback, Nicholas Backstrom, who I know he's been hurt for a good chunk of this year, but he's back and better. He's back and healthy. Evgeny Kuznetsov, who's had a pretty good year as well, and then usually TJ Oshie, but he's been banged up a little bit too. But you can still throw Tom Wilson out there, and there's a lot of talent on that power play. And you're telling me going into a game this past weekend that unit was 5 for their last 58? I mean, that's horrendous, to say the least. I should say. So We'll have to see. The Penguins, obviously, they have one of the best penalty kills in the league, but you always have to be aware for Washington's power play. I don't care how bad it is. When you have the greatest goal scorer of all time in that unit, you have to defend his office, and they still have a good chunk of playmakers and players who can really shoot the puck on that unit. But this is still going to be a good game. I think it's a pretty big game for the Penguins. It's a chance for them to get out of this funk that they're in. Washington is definitely going to get their attention, and rightfully so. This is a huge rivalry game, and this is also their last game before the All-Star break, so they're going to want to try to go out on a high note. Plus, if they win this game, they'll be 6 points up on the Capitals going into the All-Star break. If they lose in regulation, though, they'll only be 2 points up. And, the Penguins are trying to gun for, I think, one of those top 2 seeds in the Metropolitan Division. But that'll do it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I appreciate all of you listening to this one, and I will be back on Tuesday for a full game recap episode for the matchup against the Capitals. I'll talk to you all soon.